Let us begin by reading the word problem out loud. The local gym is accepting registrations for 8-player basketball teams. A total of 96 players registered. How many teams will there be? So our first step in our strategy for problem solving is always to analyze a problem. Now, when analyzing a problem, you first want to identify the question being asked. In this case, we're asked, how many teams will there be? Now that we know what's being asked, we know what we are to find. Therefore, we can already go ahead and jump to step 2 and assign the variable. In this case, we'll use a variable x. Again, any variable will work. And x is going to represent the number of teams there will be. So again, the question was, how many teams will there be? Our variable assignment is going to represent the number of teams there will be. Completely related, and again, it's just a question reworded in the form of a statement. So now let's see what other information we can extract. So let's see. The local gym is accepting registrations for 8-player basketball teams. So what does that mean? 8-player basketball teams, that's code for 8 players per team. So that's what that means. So let's go ahead and draw a little arrow here. So that's what that means. 8-player basketball teams. That just means 8 players per team. And we also know that a total of 96 players registered. So we have 96 players that are going to be participating in this basketball league. And it just so happens with all this information, we already know everything we need to know in order to create an equation. So let's go ahead and form an equation. Now our equation is going to have the following structure. The total number of players is going to equal the number of players, can't spell here, the number of players per team times the number of teams. So that's going to be the structure of our equation. Now again, we'll go ahead and color code the things just to make things a little bit more clear. So the total number of players, well, that's actually in red. We know that a total of 96 players registered, so we'll go ahead and color code that in red. And that's equal to the number of players per team. Well, we also already know that. We color code that in blue. And we know it's going to be 8-player team, so it's going to be 8 players per team. So that's going to be in blue as well. And now the number of teams. Well, that we don't know the actual numerical quantity, but we do know that's represented in green. Not just in green, but that's actually represented by a variable x. So now let's go ahead and fill in what we already know. The total number of players, we know that to be 96. We know that's going to be equal to the number of players per team, which is 8, multiplied by the number of teams, which is x. So that's going to be our equation. 96 is equal to 8x. So let's go ahead and solve our equation. We'll start off by writing it down. 96 is equal to 8x. So since we're solving, we're going to want to get the x variable completely by itself. The problem right now is the 8. So currently, we're multiplying the x by 8. Since we're multiplying and we want to undo multiplication, in order to get the x variable by itself, what is the opposite operation of multiplication? That is it. The opposite operation of multiplication is division. So since we're multiplying by 8, in order to undo the multiplication, we're going to have to divide by 8. So let me go ahead and write down the equation. And now we know that we're going to have to divide not just one side, but both sides by 8. So then 8 divided by 8 is 1. So we're left with 1 times x, which is simply x. Now what's left to do is do 96 divided by 8. So we'll do that off to the side of scratch work. So 96 goes on the inside. And the divisor, which is 8, goes on the outside. So the question is, how many times does 8 go into 9? The answer is 1. So we'll do 1 times 8, which is 8. And now we'll do 9 minus 8, which is 1. Then we bring down the 6. And now the question is, how many times does 8 go into 16? The answer is 2. So then it's going to be 2 times 8, which is 16. Go ahead and subtract those two, and we end up with a remainder of 0. Therefore, 96 divided by 8 is equal to 12. We'll go ahead and color code that in green. So now let's go ahead and state the conclusion clearly. So keep in mind the question being asked. The question was, how many teams will there be? So our response is going to be there will be 12 8-player teams. So now let us go ahead and check our result. Again, when checking the result, we want to start off with the original equation found in step 3. That is 96 is equal to 8x. However, we now know that x is equal to 12. So we're going to go ahead and substitute that in for x. So let's see, we're going to have 96 is equal to 8 times 12. So go ahead and do that off to the side as scratch work. 8 times 12. What's 8 times 12? Let us find out. So we'll go ahead and do 8 times 2. That's going to be a 16. We'll bring down the 6, make a note to add 1. So now we're going to do 8 times 1, which is 8. When we add 1 more, we get 9. So then 8 times 12 is 96. And we still have the 96 on the left-hand side. So now the question is 96 equal to 96? And it certainly is. So our conclusion is correct.